Hello and welcome back to the Goal Hour podcast. I'm Jared Johnston alongside Camilo Yepes. It's been a while. If you've been counting, thanks so much for following along, I guess. Brief little hiatus, a little bit more than brief, you could say. But yeah, we were working out scheduling, different things like that. But we're back with hopefully weekly, bi-weekly coverage of football around the world, top 5 leagues, MLS, whatever you want to call it, guests lined up in the future as well. It's a whole shebang. It's a party. You're going to want to be here. Follow us on our social media that you see on our nice little graphic below. And if you're listening on Spotify or other platforms, at the Goal Hour Pod, or find us on all of our quick links at linktree.com/the Goal Hour Pod. So without further ado, Camilo, thanks again for being here. We're ready to restart, and we're just going to get into full swing here with everything we need to do week by week, and we've got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, I think let's start on transfers, just the bigger transfers this season. So, here, let's start with an interesting one, Vlahovic to Juventus.
I mean, that was an interesting one. There's a couple transfers that I could pick out in Serie A, but obviously when we look at some of the transfers going down the line, I know you can say as a Spurs fan, you guys lost out on some. You got some good transfers, though. But as far as Vlahovic going to Juventus, that's like Fiorentina 101 as a feeder team. Like you think of Federico Chiesa, who was sold there just a few years ago, and then tremendously well in their Euros.
Even though he wasn't directly to Juventus, I think of Cuadrado. At least I don't think he was. But
yeah, I'm trying to think of where he was before, but
he was at Chelsea, I think. But
yeah,
there are like tons of players that have played for Fiorentina that now play in Juventus. I saw a little graphic on Instagram. I don't remember all of them, but it was like 6 or 7, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But from what I can see, Fiorentina are really they're keeping level with this stuff. They're a good team even without Vlahovic, so I think it was a good deal.
Yeah, that's something that's important for them. I mean, I think of a lot of the teams in Serie A. There's really only like a few. I'd say even Milan, Inter Milan, especially with the financial struggles. They're not really a buyer's team. So, like, when you think about all these teams that trying to compete and stay alive in Serie A, a lot of it is the element of scouting really well in Italy and then having your players bought. Unfortunately, it's usually by Juventus, not really doing any of the internal scouting.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. It's especially with Serie A. I can't think of another league in Europe where that happens. Well, at least a bigger league.
Yeah.
But it's interesting with Juventus's demise. I think that Vlahovic could really change that for them.
I mean, yeah, he's a striker. You think about having a guy that can kind of just do it all, right? And I think that a player that I kind of point to that did a very good job as kind of just a holistic scorer, I mean, probably the best example in modern history is Robert Lewandowski, but I thought a really good performance of just being an all-around goal scorer. Like for a team, you think of Patrick Schick with Czech Republic at the Euros. That was probably pretty unexpected, right? But being able to receive a pass, turn and shoot, being able to make runs incisively inside the box, being able to head the ball and set pieces, and that's what Vlahovic brings to a Juventus side that's really struggled to find an identity for a really long time. I mean, you can think back to the time in 2006 when they, I don't remember exactly when they got relegated due to the scandal or whatever, but they got Champions League finals after that, like 2 of them, lost both of them. And since then, they've really not been able to find some sort of cohesive identity. It's all been individuals that come in. Blaise Matuidi, Cuadrado coming in is great, but you think about the rest of the guys, like when Ronaldo was there, it was all about just feeding it through him and not really finding a game that opens up the rest of the team.
That's her problem. I think if they don't repeat this with Vlahovic, but they use him as like a team. It's a team sport. It's not one player. You can't just feed it to that striker and expect them to score.
Yeah.
I think that they set up like a more dynamic system, or not a dynamic system, but a system which creates opportunities for other players to start scoring.
Mm-hmm.
Then their league performances will be much better, and possibly they could go far in the Champions League, farther than recent years.
Yeah, I would say tactics that aren't one-dimensional, right? You can make those counter-attacking plays through Vlahovic or play it to him as a target man and kind of build up the field, whatever it may be. That's what would be useful, and that's Max Allegri's team. We'll see what he does there. But, I mean, another gaffer that is really going to have a field day, Camilo, and you love this. Unfortunately, not for your team, but Luis Diaz, the first Colombian for the Reds, and it's a pretty historic fee, and he's a really valuable player.
Yeah, I mean, it's really impressed. I've been really impressed with him just from his one game already against the second division team, Cardiff. But I mean, he showed what kind of a player he is, and he showed why Jurgen Klopp
Mm-hmm.
paid that fee for him. He made an assist. It was a really nice assist. He actually nutmegged Diogo Jota, and he passed it to Minamino, and Minamino scored. But I mean, you could see through his dribbling in that goal, or in that assist, like what kind of a player he is,
Yeah.
and what he's best at. As I mean, like, I don't want to say he's a better dribbler than like Mane, but he's comparable to Mane. I think there could be an argument, not for a starter position, but he could be a very, very useful sub.
So with that, then, what do you think is Diaz's most important asset as a player? Obviously, he's deployed on the wings a lot, but what's going to make him different for a Liverpool team that doesn't really have depth off the bench?
He's very, very intelligent with on the left wing. He's very intelligent with if he goes in, if he inverts and goes towards the goal, or if he kind of like jukes the player and goes out on the left. Because either way, the player usually doesn't expect it, and he uses his dribbling capabilities to, I guess, get around that player one or the other way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would be important for retaining possession, I guess. I'm not really sure if he's physically built for the Prem. He could be. I'm not sure yet.
Yeah. So one last question on him. This keeps it with Liverpool. You know about their tactics, obviously, with the gegenpress.
Mm-hmm.
Jurgen Klopp learning from, I guess, the master of Ralph Ragnick, who isn't showing out or impressing lately. We'll get much more of that later on the podcast. So keep listening along here, but we're going to grind out some transfer talk as always because it's an important time of the season for that in football. But for Luis Diaz, how good is he as a presser? I mean, you think of him being speedy on the ball. What's his tenacity like off the ball?
Well, I've usually seen him with Colombia, so it's a bit different. As to be honest, we don't really have a good tactics like pressing wise because we're a more defensive team.
Yeah.
But you will see him press. Usually, with Porto, I remember since they play a 4-4-2, it's really difficult for him to press up there. But his just positioning off the ball. Once you get the ball back, he'll be up there in the left to make a breakaway. So I'm not sure if it's his pressing or I'm not sure if he can really press because I haven't seen like opportunities for him to press positioning wise. But from what I have seen, he can press. He's not like amazing at it. He's not like a pressing forward or anything.
Yeah.
Like a striker position, but he will press when necessary.
But I think
and sometimes he'll go back to do his defensive duties. I do remember that with Colombia.
Mm-hmm.
he'll go back and take care of his defensive duties.
Yeah, and I think the most important thing when you think of, I guess he doesn't have to be a pressing forward as much as he has to have a work rate.
Exactly.
If he can contribute that to Liverpool and be in the right position, because he obviously has a footballing IQ. If he's in the right position on the break, you see Salah always cherry picking. Diaz can do the same thing, stretching the field, and that creates more options up the middle for their center attacking mids. Their striker playing as a false nine, etc., etc. So I think that's definitely a bright option for them.
You'll see that he can fit into the system. And I mean, as disappointing that it was that he didn't sign for Tottenham, I still think that he could do better with Liverpool, just because I think he might fit the system more.
Yeah, because Conte, a little bit different system, but we're going to keep it with Conte because Conte is rocking it lately. If you check out our Twitter handles at Camilo Isabra, very cool, and Jared Johnston TV, I've actually tweeted some things about the XG philosophy. Pretty cool page on Twitter. They had a graphic that actually showed Conte's XG growth as he stepped in to the management role for Tottenham. Actually went up by 1.5 expected goals on a rolling average per 90. So you can see the chances created, and the thing that's going to even supplement that more is the two really good business deals, funny enough, ironically, from Juventus to Tottenham Hotspur. I really like the pieces of business. I really like Dejan Kulusevski. The price you got for Kulusevski from Juventus was very good price and extremely good value for what I think you're going to get out of him.
I do believe there are clauses for if we do buy him.
Yeah.
And we would need to get top 4, and he'd need to play like 25 games next season or something for us. So I'm really hoping that we get that top 4 spot or Champions League spot. Actually, that's what it is.
The thing is, if you look at the table, it's wide open, and if you're Kulusevski, you're not getting minutes with Juventus because they kept bumping up wingers like crazy. Obviously, they just got Vlahovic to play as that number 9. It's kind of tough for him to break in, and he was a guy who did really well at the start of a few seasons ago for Juventus, but kind of got bumped down the pecking order. Did great for Sweden in the Euros, or qualifiers rather. But yeah, I think there's something for him to fit into. I don't know as much about his game as I think I should, as far as what is his work rate like, because we talk about that with seemingly every coach that plays a high-pressing, high-energy formation, and that one such formation would, of course, be with Antonio Conte. With the 3 or 5 in the back, I don't know how I'd characterize it. Camilo, I guess you could kind of place where he fits into that lineup.
I don't know Kulusevski very well either, but just from what I saw, like 25 minutes, and I'm probably very wrong. He'll fit, I think, if he can. He's very good on that right wing, as usually, or from what I saw the other day against Brighton, was he really wanted to shoot off his left, but he would pass it. He'd pass it, and he'd set up a really good opportunity for Bergwijn, who missed it. But you can see that like he can go up the pitch really quickly, which obviously helps. I don't want to call it like a counterattack for us, because it's not a counterattack. I also don't want to call it like a build up in possession, because I don't think it's that either. But I think he'll fit.
Yeah. I mean, in FIFA, it's called fast build-up, I guess.
Fast build-up, yeah.
I use it, but then it leaves me susceptible on the counterattack. Antonio Conte, not likely, because, I mean, I've seen a revelation of Harry Winks. That's been the biggest surprise for me, but, I mean, talk about the center midfield, right? A player that needs to be creative, a player that needs to make forward passes to really propel Spurs into the final third. That's been lacking for the past 2 seasons. I'm not saying Rodrigo Bentancur is the guy that can do that, but I am saying that he provides an extra bit of quality, and it's another great deal for Spurs, and I'm sure you're happy about that
Yeah,
because he's one of
I'd
the elite
assume,
transfers that really came into the Prem at a really good deal.
yeah, but honestly, I'd assume that he will help us create that creative spark. I don't know much about him, but I mean, I just assume he is. Conte wanted him.
Yeah. And in a good thing, I mean, he's getting his deals, but rest of the transfers around the league, we went through Vlahovic, Luis Diaz, the two Spurs transfers, and there's a couple more around the league, but I mean, that's what really has been significant across the past couple of weeks. You saw a lot of transfer talk with Diaz. Diaz finally gets his move. Vlahovic, of course, getting to Juventus, and I think there's going to be more to come, of course. I still have to check some of the speculation of what's going to go on. You assume Chelsea's going to do something, right? Because they always have to buy a player.
The January window's over, obviously. Yeah. But I mean, we'll see what happens during the summer.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, though. The World Cup comes on. It's in the summer or is in the winter time?
It's in the winter time.
Because I was like, I was expecting to have a nice 2022 summer window, and then I realized that because it's in the Middle East that they pushed it back, which I feel like that's going to happen for like some of the Olympic games too, but we'll see.
Are the Olympics in the Middle East or something?
There will be at some point, but I know a lot of the World Cup bids, of course, are in the Middle East for a while.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, but that's besides the point. Around the nation, around the world, I guess we could go to. Africa Cup of Nations. It's not necessarily considered the most well-run competition, but it does really showcase all the teams in Africa. You think of like Sierra Leone, a lot of smaller countries that were able to compete on a huge stage, and now finally at the final for AFCON, Egypt knocked out, and there's a couple teams in the mix ready, looking for a trophy. So, Camilo, what do you expect out of the AFCON final?
That was the final.
For what?
That was the final.
For what, Egypt?
Egypt versus Senegal, yeah.
You see, I have not kept up with it.
No, it was. I watched the final. I missed the first 20 minutes, but it was pretty entertaining. Nobody scored though, but went to penalties. But Mane did miss a penalty, which I didn't see because I missed the first 20 minutes. And well, it was all right. The Egyptian goalkeeper, I forgot his name, but holy hell, is he good?
Yeah.
He got the player of the match, which he deserved.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel for him, but I was rooting a bit for Senegal as this was their second consecutive AFCON final.
Mm-hmm.
And they've never won the trophy. So congrats to them. And I know there will be many more for Egypt. So.
Yeah, I mean, Egypt has some good players, too.
Yeah.
Obviously, Mohamed Salah's there, but if I'm not mistaken, it's either Anwar El Ghazi or Trezeguet.
Trezeguet
there as well.
Trezeguet.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also they have good players who play in Egypt as well. And mostly, I think one Egypt team, Al Hilal or something,
Al Hilal
is probably the best team in Africa, and they just beat Monterrey without a lot of their Egyptian players because they were at AFCON.
Mm-hmm.
They just beat Monterrey in the Club World Cup, which was impressive to me. They beat them 1-0. But yeah, I think a lot of these like African players are underrated just because they play in the domestic league. So
yeah.
To European or American fans, they're usually unknown.
Now we're going to take a bit more of a negative scope on a few teams, but Manchester United haven't really found, I guess, the winning formula under Ralph Ragnick. He was expected to kind of usher them to some sort of scripture of his 4-2-2-2. But it's looked disconnected. They found some results doing different things. But now they really haven't found consistency, Camilo. They got knocked out.
Yeah, and this one's going to be tough, Jared, because, I mean, they got knocked out by Middlesbrough. No
It
offense to
was
Middlesbrough.
Chris Wilder, though, too. The old Sheffield
That is true.
boss. And his tactics, when you think about it, he probably brought some of the most unique tactics to the Premier League with overlapping center backs, something he's always done in the Championship. And that could be something that messed up Man United a lot. The fact that you're playing three in the back and your center back's overlapping your outside back and your outside back's been overlapping the winger, and it just creates a lot of confusion. But regardless, there's no excuse for a team of United stature to do that, but I mean, props to Chris Wilder.
No, definitely. It was impressive, but the real question is, what are Man United going to do now? I mean, they've really had like a tough, I guess, week.
Yeah.
With finding out that one of their players is whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And now this.
Yeah, for those who have not been updated with that, Mason Greenwood is being tried in court for something he did. We don't need to say it on here.
Yeah. Well,
just because of YouTube stuff and things like that, probably. But you can go check that out for yourself. Long story short, society. We live in a society, and United won't be with the player for, we presume, don't really know when, Camilo, but it could be like, it could be just his entire career gone.
Yeah, I'd hope so. If the allegations are true, which from the evidence I've seen, they are. But either way, horrible thing. And moving past that, they've had a difficult week with that whole situation, and or I guess 2 weeks, and the Middlesbrough defeat. And honestly, if I were Ralph Ragnick right now, I would need to, I don't know how to put it, you've really got to pick these players up, and you've got to show them why you are a good boss, why you're a good manager. And
but I think a lot of that goes back to the age-old Mourinho question. Is it really the fault of the manager at this point? When you've had players there for years and years and years, you think 6 years, 7 years, 3 or 4 managers in and out, and the players are still lazy. And
I'll tell you what. I think Mourinho is still a good coach. I just don't think he can adapt to this more modern football game, due to the fact that the personalities of the players are going to be so much bigger, and they're going to be so much, I guess, focused on the media. Is the best way I can put it.
I mean,
some of these players.
Yeah, I mean, could you think that has also been the case for the rest of the coaches at United?
Yeah, no, definitely. Except for Ole, I want to say, because I think since Sir Alex left, all these coaches have had that problem, including Ole. But I think Ole, him being fired was for different reasons as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So United, not mighty Red Devils. Kind of unfortunate for a team, but I mean, they deserve it in the sense that, they haven't been able to maintain any sort of platform. They're getting all these gigantic transfers, but not doing anything. I don't know what the reputation holds if they continue on this downwards trajectory.
And what do you think it's the personalities of the club? What do you think it is? Personally, what do you think it is?
I think the big thing is that, yeah, I mean, there are some personalities, but at the same time, you can think back, full disclaimer for everyone listening or watching, I am not a Paul Pogba fan. So when I think of Paul Pogba, I look at the guy who makes a couple nice passes, a couple really nice goals, and then he disappears for the rest of the year. game in, game out. You think of his season last season in the Prem, gets the red card, leaves, really not threatening. And even when you think of United, you can say that he's a world class player. I'll give you that one to plug into a hypothetical scenario. But they never really gave him like a true operating position. The center point was around Bruno Fernandes. So Paul Pogba was playing left midfield, holding midfield, which he did well for France in holding midfield. But ultimately, I feel like you have a player that wants to unleash some sort of creativity. Do I think he has it? I don't think so. But I'm just using him as an example of something where even when you think about Ronaldo coming in, when Bruno had that downturn, because he wasn't the centerpiece of the attack. Obviously, that switched around with coaching, telling Ronaldo what to do, right? But you can see how kind of those new figures come in, trying to draw and push an influence on the team, at least from the attacking perspective. Because defensively, Rafael Varane comes into the team, and he slots in with Maguire. He's a terrible partner, but that's all they got. But the attacking threat is what's been dictated more as far as what's changed with players coming in and out. And ultimately, I think it's just like really just a bet game by game. Because you think of all the combinations that Ragnick and other players and other managers would try. And when they had Greenwood up, Rashford hasn't had a great spell of form. Ronaldo's obviously the striker there, but now they don't even play Cavani, right? So that was my question heading into this season. You signed Cavani from PSG. He's arguably the, if not, I'm not going to say the best, but I would say a top 5 pressing forward in the world. The way he does it with Uruguay, with Luis Suarez. He knows how to press and shift pressure so that you can win the ball back high up the pitch.
Yeah.
And that's what the game was designed for Ole and even Ralph, and they don't even use him. Yes, he's been injured, but even when he's been available in the lineup, they have an identity that they want to implement on the players instead of kind of using the players to the advantage. And at the same time, it also works in a terribly synergistic way where the players, I think, don't listen to the management and think they know what's best.
I definitely think that that could be possible with what you said with Rafael Varane. Um, he's obviously like he'll be like the centerpiece of the defense now. But so yeah, you're right that he doesn't really need to make any system changes there. But with like Ronaldo, even Sancho,
Yeah.
You're gonna have some problems, and especially with Pogba as well. I think Pogba is like a more extreme example of those problems you're gonna have with Ronaldo and Sancho, which they're already having. But it's just prolonged, and they haven't really been able to fix it. That's why I think the Pogba transfer was kind of useless because he doesn't fit into their system. No matter how many different systems they're gonna try. With like Bruno Fernandes, he fit perfectly.
Yeah, because I'd say the best position for Paul Pogba is in a central midfield role, but like not an attacking midfielder, but in an advanced position in the midfield, like as a number 8. But with United, he doesn't really play there, and that's just one example of where players are kind of just out of sorts.
Well, that's the thing. With United, you just have so much talent that you don't know when to use, where to use, how to use most of them. I mean, obviously, center backs, that's going to be like an obvious one. You just use them as a center back, unless it's like a back three or something. But with like the wing backs, even you still have problems. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, you still have problems with him. I think it was last season. I'm not sure. You have problems with who's this left back that everyone likes so much. I forgot his name. Oh, Luke Shaw.
Yeah.
You had problems with him under Mourinho, and now he's kind of had a resurgence. You're going to have problems with... There's a new guy, I forgot one of the fullbacks, who hasn't been getting that much game time, but I think now he's been getting more recently. That's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But I think every position there at United, other than center backs and the goalkeeper, is kind of it's testy. They don't really have like a good strategy, a good role for all those players.
Yeah. But
Even actually with Ronaldo, as he doesn't press, and
mhm.
Ragnick likes a pressing system, that's a big thing.
I think that's the
Man
biggest
United.
problem. And I mean, I think you could point to the fact that maybe Ragnick plays him just because he's Ronaldo, one. But two, I would say, is the board making him play Ronaldo all the time? Or is that something that he wants to choose to do, but because he is one of the prime goal scorers ever? But, like, when I think of it from a logical standpoint, right? This is a
Yeah,
38-year-old striker who takes immense care of his body. He does a great job. But he's just not going to chase the ball down, and you need to have some sort of different look to help supplement that. And with his pressing, he needs two forwards that can do that. So when you play Ronaldo as one of the guys, if a Cavani or someone else presses to the left side, you should switch it across the field from center back to center back, and you're out. You're out between breaking the first line. So I think that's a
that's
big problem for them to try to hash out.
that's the thing. I personally think you have Ronaldo on your team. You either want to adapt to it, or you just want him out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Ragnick is a smart man, and I think he will find a way to like adapt Ronaldo's positioning. Obviously, not as a winger or anything, but still as like a striker.
Yeah.
Uh, I think maybe if you have like Bruno Fernandes or something, make up for what he lacks,
Yeah,
or
he's
if
a
you
really
have
great
another
presser.
center mid.
But I think another thing that is difficult is you saw what kind of happened in the early goings is Bruno would press for Ronaldo, but then he's caught out
Mhm.
on defense, and you only have four guys and two guys back because the other two wingers play more as forward advanced wingers in position than actual outside midfielders. So when Bruno was kind of caught up playing in an advanced position, like he would be beat, and then it would fall on Fred and McTominay and whoever was playing as those pivots. And so I think that's another difficult situation where, yeah, you can say maybe Bruno picks up the slack, but it puts him in a risky position for the rest of the team if he's beat, which is probable, considering they can draw the team out and create that gaping hole in the middle.
Oh, that's true. I mean, it would still be difficult for the two center mids to press. I think unless you use like a kind of regista where you have a player in the very back pressing, or
Mm-hmm.
not pressing.
Yeah,
I think it's regista. Yeah,
yeah,
you have
deep
a
lying
player in the
playmaker.
back pressing. If you could find like that, that would be perfect. But you'd also have to put Bruno back a bit. Um, but it's I'm not a football manager. I can't like find the exact solution for all their problems.
Mm-hmm.
But I think like for these professionals who get paid to manage these teams, I think Ragnick should definitely find a solution soon, system wise,
Yeah.
because you have so much talent on that team.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible.
And another manager in hot water, Marco Rose for Borussia Dortmund. I just saw
Yeah,
their recent result, and
yeah.
that wasn't great for them.
As well as they lost to St. Pauli before the
Yeah,
break, which was wow.
which I remember
I don't
at the start of the season they were struggling as well, but then they picked it up, and then now we're back.
I don't know much about Dortmund right now, but
Mm-hmm.
all I know is they're struggling and they gotta come up with a solution soon. Or not struggling, but they're starting to. We're starting to see cracks.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that, when I look at it though, Camilo, is it's the obvious answer if you don't play Erling Haaland all the time. which they had to have done with the injuries across the season. It's tough for them to really find scoring besides playing through Haaland. And I think it's quite evident that we've seen for a while. And obviously, if you have a guy like that, he's probably the most consistently informed player in the world when he's playing. But if they take him out as an offensive threat down the middle, they don't really have much else. They have a lot of really good creative midfielders that can kind of play as central midfielders or on the outside, can make plays. You think of Marco Reus, Julian Brandt, who came into the lineup, but I don't think they really have another striker that can pick up some sort of scoring slack, whether it's cup games or otherwise. And I think they start to run into problems if teams try to shut down that one Haaland option.
I do think they have a few problems with that, but I think that what's his name, Donny
Van de Beek.
No, Donald Mallon.
I could only associate Van de Beek, even though it made no sense in this situation. But
yeah, I think Donald Mallon will pick up. He has picked up the slack for Haaland in some cases, but obviously he's not that good of a player in comparison to Haaland. So he's still gonna have those problems. But I think they've just been dealt really bad cards, and I think they've had problems all around, especially defensive, from what I hear, for Dortmund. But
yeah.
I really have nothing else to comment.
No, yeah. I mean, they're going to work on it for sure, but let's get to a fun segment to kind of round out this. Go ahead, sorry.
I have one more segment before this one. Let's talk about Everton.
Everton. That's a good
Everton.
bit of transfer business.
Yeah, as well as I guess we should talk about both the former England midfielders, Everton and Aston Villa.
Yeah, I feel like I should have thought about that when we were talking about transfers earlier, but bonus transfer segment. Really good moves, but I guess we could start with your guy Dele.
Yeah, okay, so Dele, I guess this is the move he might need to revitalize his career, and I guess Frank Lampard has really he's taken a chance with him. Although they obviously have other good midfielders.
Van de Beek's going to do great.
Van de Beek as well. But I think if Dele can get that playing time, he can be very, very, very good for Everton. Maybe not. He maybe won't reach the heights that he did before, but we'll see under this new manager and possibly a new system.
Yeah.
But with Van de Beek, I definitely think he will shine if he gets the playing time he needs. He's already been snubbed by like 2 managers at United. And I think I don't think he's going to have a problem with confidence, just personally. He doesn't seem like the type of person to. But again, we'll see.
Yeah.
They got an attacking-minded midfielder, and they had I'm not sure how Van de Beek plays.
Well, he's deployed more as a central midfielder, but he's still more attacking, obviously. But more balanced player in that sense. But I don't know. Looking at Dele, I've not been a big Dele fan, so obviously best of luck to him, I guess, going through what he can do with Everton. And they're in a dire position right now, so anything Frank can do to get wins and get these players, I think they'll get out of it for sure. No doubt about it with some of these additions.
People seem to forget that Frank Lampard did get Chelsea Champions League last season. So, or not last season, 2 seasons ago. So,
but that was on. I think the most important note. Sorry for interrupting. Is that he did it all with the young players during the transfer ban. So if you're an Everton fan, something that you can really be proud about and really be excited about looking forward is that he can use players to his advantage of what they have in his system, like he did during that transfer ban.
No, yeah. And it's exciting. We'll see what happens. But going on to Steven Gerrard
Oh, I love
and
his
his
team right
Aston
now.
Villa.
Love his team.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Hmm.
Here, let me actually pull up all his players because I don't have all of them. But was it Lucas Digne that he signed?
Yeah, he got Dino.
Um, I found that very surprising, but it could be smart as he is a underrated player, and I think he could be very good for them. He's a bit old, isn't he?
He's not old, he's not young. I think he's like 29 or something like that. But he's a
Uh,
French international, but he wasn't really the first choice left back ever. And I think now he is, but it's interesting to see like what's going to happen for the landscape of his individual career. But for the rest of the team, like I look at Stevie G's team and I was watching it. Obviously the marquee transfer is Philippe Coutinho,
yeah.
but I was watching their game against Manchester United a few weeks ago. I haven't watched them since, admittedly, but it was the game where they drew 2-2. And United, I think they scored the two go-ahead goals, but Villa had most of the possession, and they were so exciting to watch. Like United was just defending the whole time. And that's something you haven't seen from Aston Villa since like the 60s probably. You haven't seen that in Birmingham for a very long time. But now it's happening with Aston Villa, which you couldn't have said this 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I don't think you would have said this to yourself, right? But they're a really threatening team, and I would not be surprised if they could try to challenge for a Europa League spot. I think a Conference League spot would definitely be attainable. But I think they're going to be a team that's just going to be a menace to others in that little climb there at the top of the table because they have the talent and the ability and a cohesive team. The way they play together, the way they press for Jared right now is committed. It reminds me of a Brighton team that does really well playing to a system, but they have so much more quality, and that's what's going to be so useful for them down the stretch.
And I mean, with the I think they were still feeling the effects of selling Grealish. But I think now they're really
Yeah.
gonna they found their replacement
Hmm.
for the rest of the season. And we'll see about other players. As Matt Target, didn't he leave, or has he? When did he leave? Did he leave?
I think he left to like Newcastle or a team like that, but
I
you
think it
should fact
was.
check that. I know he
Yeah, he left
was
Newcastle on loan,
something like that.
loan to buy. I think.
Hmm. Yeah.
Well, no, just loan. I'm not sure. I can't really. I don't understand the transfer market, but he could be good for Newcastle, and I guess it's good to let him go just for right now. When you get Digne,
Hmm. Yeah.
but Gerard knows what he wants,
Hmm.
and people have been doubting him. I think due to the fact that he only managed Rangers, but they seem to forget that he had an invincible season, and that he made good player signings. He helped a lot of players, I guess, grow.
Yeah, but I think the biggest thing to point out that's kind of underrated, I guess you would say, as a manager, is you think of Frank Lampard, and both these guys were captains. But a big part of being a manager, of course, is being able to communicate with players and getting them to understand what you want them to do, but also getting them to play for each other and communicate with each other. And I'm not trying to knock Frank Lampard, but he obviously didn't do that very well during the latter stretch of his Chelsea career. But Steven Gerrard, the Liverpool captain for how long, right? Is seemingly doing that with everything he touches. Not a large sample size, but players in, players out in a Scottish league and then doing well internationally is a very good accomplishment, along with going to Aston Villa and doing what he's doing right now. If he maintains the consistency, you can see his quality. And I don't think it's as much as the tactical ability because anyone can try to implement tactics, but to get your team to understand and play for you like they are right now, it's a sight that you only see from very few teams at the top. And they can challenge further and further and further and further. And I think that really makes them a bit of an appealing team as well. Because, Camilo, I think the great point you made was, yeah, they were feeling the loss of Jack Grealish, but now they're doing so much more. They're not playing through one guy. And they have the $100 million in their pocket to do something. They don't have to make a huge splash. It could be the permanence of Philippe Coutinho. I don't think that's super likely. But if they were to able to establish some sort of transfer like that, that would take them to a whole nother level. That would create a Leicester-type situation where you're kind of adding to the big six.
Yeah, and I mean, let's be honest here. Buendia hasn't had the best time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's good to get other players in there that will help. Obviously, he cost a pretty penny, but you can still utilize him. He's still a fairly decent player.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we'll see how Gerrard can also use Tip, because he's not a bad player.
Yeah. So Stevie G, great manager so far. Now bring it back to what I was speaking about earlier, but Camilo got us with the Everton talk and the Villa talk, deservedly so. We'll keep updated with that in our future episodes as well, because they're a fantastic watch. If they're not paywalled on Peacock, highly recommend watching one of those games, wherever you're listening from, wherever you get your coverage. But last bit, for all of our U.S. citizens here, or American fans, Gregg Berhalter, a name that's really polarizing across the U.S. soccer fandom. I don't like him.
Love him or hate him.
I don't know a lot of people that do like him. Yes, they won in Minnesota, but I guess we could break down a few of the international matches or what we think the forecast is for the future of the World Cup with this team, but it's always puzzling to me. I'm just going to talk about it, I guess, because he doesn't seem like he knows what he's doing when he makes changes. I think that's the most worrying thing that we've seen. We saw it in the Gold Cup. We saw it in CONCACAF. He makes just changes on a whim. He doesn't do anything that actually impacts the game, and I think that's his biggest problem. When he brings on a Giassi Zardes for
right
Tyler
now,
Adams and puts him at left midfielder, or that was actually Tim Wee in the Gold Cup. He put the striker at left mid. He does things that make no sense sometimes, and almost never does he make a threatening change that actually changes the game. So he's being tactically bested by other managers in CONCACAF. If the standard is to try to compete with Europe within the next 5 to 10 years with this generation of players, he's not the guy. And there's a Jesse Marsch waiting there for a phone call, I would presume. Gregg Berhalter is just not the guy, I think, because of that. Because he can't communicate well enough to his players, and he doesn't know even what he's want to do himself to try to best other teams that can get his number.
Yeah, and you're right. And I think one of the biggest problems is, as you said, the substitutions. Sorry, I'm not sure if you guys could hear my audio. I think there's something going on with my OBS, but it's like cutting in and out. But
Oh, yeah, we can hear it. We'll just pitch it up for everyone. We'll do that service for y'all. Thanks again so much for tuning in. Look at our socials if you want to follow us on all platforms. But back to Berhalter, right?
Yeah. Sorry. But like he makes changes like putting on. I was pulling something up from Canada against the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
He started Giassi Zardes. Now I don't think he's a horrible player. I just don't think he's a starter. I think he can have a good impact as a sub. Maybe sometimes, but it really depends. And like he puts on players like Jordan Morris, taking off Aronson when he's performing well, not good, but he's performing better than we know. We have seen Jordan Morris perform
Yeah.
in a U.S. jersey. Things like that, I don't understand. Areola as well. Like I haven't seen Morris or Areola really perform that well for us, so I don't understand why they keep getting called up, or even just played. When you have players, I can't name any players right now, but the player from the Dutch league that he played against Honduras, De La Torre. He was good. There's a player currently playing in Brazil with Brazilian heritage, but he can be called up to the U.S. I forgot his name, but he's pretty good. Call up like those players, those midfielders as substitutes. I don't right now. I don't know any like wingers, but I've heard a few names being like thrown around that are better than Paul Areola and Jordan Morris. So I just think he needs to call up the right players too.
Maybe Greg is just a closeted Blink-182 fan, and him and Paul Areola go to concerts together and have listening parties. Little known fact about Paul Areola.
Yeah.
Noted
Who
fan.
knows? And I respect him for that, but still, he also has problems with where to play players, as you said
Absolutely.
before. And I think if he's going to play Pulisic has been struggling. He just scored one goal against Honduras, but watching him during the Canada and the El Salvador game I couldn't put it into words. It was just so frustrating. He wasn't playing well. So I think if Berhalter wants to use him, use him, he's got to find like a good way to use him.
You know what I think's ridiculous though, is the fact that the U.S. Soccer Federation felt the need to play that match in -degree weather with wind chill against Honduras. Like, I get that it's the United States and you can play anywhere, right? But
yeah,
there has to be some sort of ruling over that inclement weather. And I don't know what it is, what the thinking is. Like, do you really think that you need to put that team at that much of a home disadvantage so that you could win a game 3-0, a game that you should be winning 3-0? But I don't know. That startled me to me, the fact that they played it like that in that conditions.
and honestly, I think it was
Completely
a bit
unnecessary.
disrespectful. It was pretty disrespectful in my eyes as well.
Yeah, because you think about it, and a lot of these countries in Central America, South America are smaller. One, don't have the resources. Two, but the biggest thing is they have a pretty neutral climate that's usually pretty tropical or warm. And so, yes, the United States has the opportunity to use different areas to its advantage, but I don't think that going up to Minnesota during that time is fair as much as, you could just play in a little bit of a colder state. You could play in New York, play in another state. But where it was right there was extremely disrespectful. And I feel
speaking of disrespect,
it seems like you can't even trust the team to pull out a result when you play like that, if you want them to win in that condition.
No, but also I heard another thing of Berhalter taking a selfie with a fan before the game was over, which was also quite disrespectful. That's another thing. But I think the U.S., like, not fans maybe, but the Federation and possibly the fans are kind of starting to get like a toxic mentality. And I think that needs to be stopped sooner or later because we got to remember we haven't always been the best. Well, currently we're
still
not
are
even
not
really
the
the
best.
best. Yeah,
Nowhere
we're not
near
the
it.
best. We're very close to it, but we're not the best. We need to reach for that. But we also need to respect our opponents and such, and we need to like hold our own players accountable. We need to, not just the MLS guys, the players playing in Europe too. I mean, Christian Pulisic was horrible those first two games, and he was against Honduras. So if you're gonna like criticize players, make sure to criticize everyone who's been playing bad.
Yeah, that's a good point. I agree with that for sure. But last topic of conversation, keeping it with the gaffer, but I mentioned Jesse Marsch earlier, and that's always an interesting nod that people say, especially since she's probably the most successful American coach abroad besides getting sacked by Leipzig in his first season. I'd say it's pretty safe to say he's the most successful U.S. coach to date to go into one of the top 5 leagues, because you don't really see any other American coaches in the top 5 leagues. But he obviously came through the Red Bull system, coached with the New York Red Bulls, then Salzburg, then Leipzig, plays the German-style football, plays with a press, plays on a team collective, can be decisive on the counterattack. And I feel like if you're looking at Gregg Berhalter and realizing this is a guy that coached Columbus Crew, what level of quality are we trying to take here? If you're trying to get this team to push for the semifinals of a tournament of the World Cup, because that's the realistic ceiling that they want to hit, quarterfinals or semifinals, then you need someone that has contested against the quality of those players that are going to be there. And,
Including,
I mean, what do you think
manager.
would happen if that was a sort of coaching change that was made?
I mean, I think Jesse Marsch could work, but I also think foreign managers are there as well. I know it doesn't feel the same, but we could really look to a foreign manager to help this squad, to help
You think of
these
Jurgen
players, as
Klinsmann in the
we don't-
past. Not
we
a tremendous
don't
manager,
have.
but he was a guy that had experience and brought this team to a great game against Belgium.
And
Tim Howard, fantastic.
To be honest, I think he's better than most of our current
Oh, absolutely. He's
managing
better than
pool.
Bruce Arena and Gregg Berhalter right now.
Yeah, so I mean, I think we need to look out of our closed American management pool. I mean, not that the U.S. men's national team are really looking for another manager, but as fans, yes, Jesse Marsch is good, but there have got to be other options out there. I can't name any, but
Yeah.
there have to be. So I think we wait for Berhalter to get the sack, and then we push for our managers.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Unfortunately, I think they hold on to him through the World Cup.
I do as well. And it's not something that I want to see, but I do want to see him succeed.
Yeah.
I want to see him succeed competently.
Sure.
Because if he just succeeds off whims, we're not going to see improvements.
Yeah, but I don't see him succeeding off. I don't see him even succeeding off of wins, because the wins that he did get.
No, whims. I meant whims as in just barely succeeding, not due to his management talent, but due to getting really lucky.
Yeah, but that's what the two competitions were: the Gold Cup and CONCACAF.
Yeah. Sorry.
Or Cup the Nations League.
No, yeah, you're right.
All
I
one.
want to see
You go to the Gold Cup, every single knockout round was a 1-0 match. The last 2 games decided by a set piece. Yeah, you can credit a team for being good at set pieces, but that's the creativity of the players. It's the job of the managers to create a cohesive environment for a team to get goals in open play. And so when the players are just scoring on set pieces or just nothing plays, they're
there's
just
nothing,
getting lucky and they're bailing them out.
There's nothing wrong with being using set pieces.
Sure.
But the problem is the overuse of set pieces, I guess. The reliance on it.
Yeah.
As you were saying before. And that's what we need to look out for.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure if he even realizes yet that that's a problem.
I think that's the big thing.
Berhalter's really got to start finding creative ways to, because it's not the players. He has so much talent. Players side, he has, I think, the best midfield 3 we've ever had before with Weah, or not Weah. I'm sorry.
Adams, Weston, and
Musa. Is Musa the winger or is Weah the winger?
Well, Weah is more of a striker, but I think both of them kind of play wings.
Oh, I think it's MMW or something.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, like those are that could be utilized so well creatively. And then we have Christian Pulisic, and I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, so
I honestly don't know. We'll see in the future.
a plethora of talent that needs to be relied on, and we'll keep navigating this as we go along the season. But you'll learn about our little bit of our preferences as far as what we think's going right and wrong across leagues, international competitions, and for us, at least for the USMNT, I think it's safe to say both of our positions is Berhalter out. So
Yeah.
with that, we'll go goal hour
Sorry,
out
Greg.
for. Go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, Greg. Sorry, Greg.
My apologies, Greg. I'll send you a letter in the mail. But
Yeah, you're probably a nice person.
yeah, Berhalter out, goal hour out for this first episode, starting back into the real season 2 of the Goal Hour podcast. We just eclipsed the hour mark, so kudos to us bringing in that packed in, action packed content. We're gonna have this all on social media. You can follow that with the platforms linked below. And really just keep up with everything that we're doing because we're going to give you updates about when our next show is going to be, Twitter, Instagram, and what our schedule is going to look like because figuring it out right now, depending on which guests we get from week to week or whether we're going on by ourselves, we could have weekly, bi-weekly shows. Stay tuned to that and look at our social media for all of that information that you need to know. But for the Goal Hour podcast now, I'm Jared Johnston alongside Camilo Yepes. We were so glad to bring it to you. We're finally back. Thank you. And tune in, follow along, and get ready for the next episode.
Ciao.